stories. The brain sees what it wants to see. Professor Philip Goodman, played by Andy Nyman, investigates 3 mysterious cases with a view to debunk the paranormal with the help of his psychology and scientific learnings. But as he progresses deeper into the cases, he finds himself trapped between the real and imaginary world. It's very well executed and expressively lensed by cinematographer Ole Brad Birkeland, whose oppressive sense of place and unfocused glimpses of the unexplainable sneak under the skin more cunningly than any jump scare. Also, considering he was on screen with Martin Freeman and Paul Whitehouse, Alex Lothar, who we know from End of the Fucking World, gave a standout performance. Unsane. With Unsane, Steven Soderbergh is saying so long to studio movies and hello to those filmed entirely on an iPhone. This Scream Fist is a noir-style paranoia thriller starring Claire Foy as a woman who unwittingly signs herself up to be remanded to an asylum, and things get even twistier from there. Suspiria. It's possible Italian director Luca Guadagnino has done for remakes what Dario Argento did for Giallo. A master of sensory overload, see I Am Love, Call Me By Your Name, Guadagnino tackles the sixth sense in this Argento reboot that follows very ominous activities of an elite Berlin dance school faculty and the unfortunate young women who begin to suspect the truth about the school. Even given the original movie's place in the Horror Film Hall of Fame, there's something truly wildly, indelibly ambitious about this beautifully scary film. Cam. Cam is a movie depicting the harmful side effects of the influencer age. It is also driven by the ubiquitous modern fear of our real lives being corrupted by our digital ones. It is just what the movie stash of 2018's best psychological horror needs. Would you like it if Black Mirror was made into a movie? If yes, this is it. Also, isn't Madeline Brewer a stunner? Hereditary. Gird thyself before watching this, as this tense thriller about a family spiraling after the death of its matriarch was the talk of Sundance. It terrorized thousands of viewers at the Sundance Film Festival and caused a mass walkout. People even had to go for counseling as they got so emotionally drained it became very hard to cope up. Excuse me, can I get an Oscar for Toni Collette, please? Here are some takeaways from the movie. Number 1. I'm going to sleep with all the lights on tonight. Number 2. I'd really like to be friends with Ann Dowd. She seems so nice. And let's get lunch. Number 3. Don't you dare click your tongue in my presence. Don't. Ever. The Nun. The Nun is not a stereotypical horror but a modern day one, more like Conjuring 2. People who enjoy the artistic aspects of horror films, beautifully layered plot lines in particular, would love this one. James Swan deserves an applause just for the way he has bound the whole Conjuring universe by giving us the best ending in the history of Conjuring films. Draped in darkness with a suitably creepy locale surrounding by an ominous graveyard and inhabited by a chorus line of spectral sisters, it so dutifully deploys all the expected tropes as things jump out of shadows or suddenly appear in the negative space behind a character holding a candle. Also, you'll find yourself rooting for Tessa Farmiga's sister Irene, waiting for her to kick the demon's ass. Halloween. Some stories get better with age, in this case, creepier. Even though the Michael Myers saga has 10 almost successful installments, the latest chapter from David Gordon Green and Danny McBride sets itself apart. With composition from John Carpenter, the badass Jamie Lee Curtis returning to play Laurie Strode 40 years after the first film, and the Michael Myers striking again, you really cannot afford to miss this cult classic. Just don't, okay? Annihilation. Although Annihilation is nothing like Jeff Vandermeer's bestseller, that doesn't mean it's not worth it. In fact, you will have a hard time deciding on your favorite part. Is it the climatic tension with next to none dialogues, psychedelic and beautiful hallucinatory effects, the powerful female cast comprising of Natalie Portman, Tessa Thompson, Gina Rodriguez, etc.? Angelica Jade Bastien called the movie a masterwork I felt in my nerve endings, a brutal, gorgeous meditation on the rigors of depression and the human impulse towards self-destruction. Now that says something. Mandy. Nicolas Cage gave a deliriously wild performance in this psychedelic and bloody horror action hybrid as a man who avenges the death of his wife, who was abducted by the leader of an LSD-dropping cult. As hallucinatory and experimental as his debut, writer-director Panis Cosmatos also finds in the fantastical aspects of Nature Satan's Church, as Lars von Trier would have it, a dark and vigorous core of humanity. Apostle. Netflix's Apostle is brilliant. Bring your patience, but you won't need it. It's a gothic nightmare period piece with cosmic underpinnings, brilliant writing and cast, and the darkest, most perfect atmosphere of its type that I've seen in a long time. It's easily one of the most fascinating, disturbing, and oddly beautiful horror films of the year. The Ritual. Four old friends travel into a foreboding forest, and I know, you've heard this one before. So have I. Only this time, it's interesting. Suffice to say that these guys stumble across a freaky shack, unwisely opt to sleep in a said shack, and then find themselves hopelessly lost. Also, there may or may not be a monster on their trail. This one does not reinvent any wheels plot-wise, but it's a very well shot, acted, and conceived piece of horror filmmaking. Revenge. Writer-director Coralie Fargeau's rape revenge pulse pounder was blood, and more blood. I mean, it's what she told her VFX team while designing and her composer Rob when he was making the film's score. With Revenge, Fargeau delivers something empowering that avoids the exploitative traps of RR films while still emphasizing the impact of sexual trauma on victims. It's not for the sensitive souls, especially the wild climax, but Revenge shows how even the most problematic parts of horror can be reclaimed for the good. The House That Jack Built. This cinematic feast by Lars von Trier opened up to a wild response at Cannes. Both a standing ovation and hundreds of walkouts. Quoted as one of his most challenging and confrontational films, The House That Jack Built deals with a man's capacity for both the good and the evil, but Lars von Trier more effectively illuminates the narcissist's overinflated sense of self and simultaneously crippling insecurity, serving us an irresistible dose of bare insanity. The film finds von Trier wrestling with the claims of misogyny and misanthropy that have followed him his entire career, but not in the way you'd expect. If anything, he leans into both, daring you to look into the abyss with him as he interrogates his own dark side and banishes himself to the underworld. Also, Matt Dillon's performance as the notorious serial killer will give you nightmares for straight 1 to 2 nights. Tumbad. Tumbad is a genre-defining masterpiece, and very rarely does Bollywood generate gems like this one. True horror is when greed overrides fear. Every frame is meticulously crafted painting. It showcases the vices of human beings. Greed and lust will always lead to a disastrous ending through a compelling narrative. The film was in the making for 6 years, and it will be remembered forever for its impeccable execution. Kudos to Rahi Anil Barve and Soham Shah for not giving up their dream this film. A Quiet Place. A Quiet Place brought in 50 million domestically and notched the biggest opening weekend ever for an original horror story, which was also good enough to make it the third highest horror opening of all time, behind last year's It and Paranormal Activity 3 from 2011. Real-life couple Emily Blunt and John Krasinski star in this monster feature about a family of 4, with one on the way, trying to survive in a new world overrun by sound-sensitive monsters. There is only one rule if you wish to survive in this world. You can run, you can hide, but you cannot scream. Good luck sleeping after watching any of these.